Once, in the village of Uremu, nestled deep within the golden grasses of the vast savanna, there lived a young couple whose love shone brighter than the moon's reflection on the river. Olana, a spirited weaver of Ankara fabric with hands that birthed patterns as complex as the stars. And Kwadwo, a hunter whose laughter echoed in the hills, had become the heartbeat of Uremu. When they danced together during festivals, their movements seemed to weave the air itself into harmony. But in the shadows, someone watched with envy. A witch named Abena lived on the edge of the village, cloaked in mystery and rejection. Her powers were legendary, feared as much as admired, but her loneliness smoldered bitterly in her heart. Years ago, she had been in love with Kwadwo, drawn to his vitality and charm, but he had chosen Olana instead, an act Abena saw not as destiny but as betrayal. Late one night, as the drumbeats of a festival faded into the still air, Abena walked through Uremu's narrow pathways, her elaborate dress catching the faint glow of the moonlight. From her hands, she carried a bowl dyed with blue and black, holding a potion as dark as her thoughts. She whispered into the liquid, a spell born from bitterness. "Let them forget each other," she hissed, her voice pinched with malice. "Let love turn to mist, and let their bond be broken as easily as a thread torn by the wind." The next morning, Olana and Kwadwo woke with empty hearts. When Olana passed Kwadwo near the river, where he often gathered soft grasses to line his traps, her gaze slid past him as though he were just another villager. Kwadwo, a mere step away, felt no pull toward her, no recognition. Their laughter was silenced, their bond erased. The village began to notice their strange behavior, whispers swirling like dust, but none understood the cause. Only Abena sat in her hut at the edge of the village, satisfied, though her satisfaction was bitter and full of grief. The next morning, Olana and Kwadwo woke with empty hearts. When Olana passed Kwadwo near the river, where he often gathered soft grasses to line his traps, her gaze slid past him as though he were just another villager. Kwadwo, a mere step away, felt no pull toward her, no recognition. Their laughter was silenced, their bond erased. The village began to notice their strange behavior, whispers swirling like dust, but none understood the cause. Only Abena sat in her hut at the edge of the village, satisfied, though her satisfaction was bitter and full of grief. But Uremu was no ordinary village. It held one elder whose wisdom ran deeper than the roots of the great tree in the center of the marketplace. Elder Kafilwe, a tall figure draped in patterned tunics that billowed like clouds, watched Olana and Kwadwo with a heavy heart. She called them to her under the shade of the market tree, resting her hands on her staff carved with ancient symbols. "A foul enchantment hangs over you," she said, her voice soft but commanding. "Your hearts are bound by love, yet clouded by forgetfulness." Olana tilted her head, her brow furrowed. "Elder, how could this be? Kwadwo is nothing to me. I feel only emptiness." "And yet," Kafilwe replied, her gaze locking onto Olana's, "that emptiness is the space left by love stolen from you." Kwadwo frowned. "A stolen love?" His hands tightened on the shaft of his hunting spear. "Tell me how to reclaim it." Kafilwe raised her staff. "You must walk the path of memory. Trials will challenge you, each one asking the question, is your love worth fighting for? Only through these trials will you recover what you've lost." The trials began the next morning. Kafilwe led Olana and Kwadwo to a sacred hill rising steeply near the river, its base overgrown with vines. "This hill will weigh your wills," she said. "You must climb, but only with hands joined. Should you separate, the hill will punish you." Olana hesitated, throwing a doubtful glance at Kwadwo. "I do not understand why my hand must join his." "Because together you ascend, alone you fall," Kafilwe answered. She turned away, fading into the forest. The couple clasped hands reluctantly, their grips stiff, their movements awkward. The climb was steep and treacherous, the hill testing them with loose rocks and shifting dirt. When Olana stumbled on brittle branches, Kwadwo had to steady her, though his heart resisted. And when Kwadwo slipped on wet roots, Olana's instinct pulled him upright, though confusion clouded her actions. By the time they reached the summit, something stirred faintly in their hearts. A question, not an answer, of what connection they still held. The second trial summoned them to the forest's edge. where Kafilwe awaited beside a massive baobab tree with bark gnarled like ancient faces. "Inside this tree are your memories," she said simply. "But you must both carve the paths to find them. Dig deeper together, struggle together, until the shapes of your story appear." With pointed tools, Olana and Kwadwo began chiseling at the tree, their motions clumsy at first. But as the sun sank further into its golden bed, their efforts grew synchronized. Through exhaustion and frustration, they carved symbols onto the baobab, patterns reflecting Olana's weaving and the shapes Kwadwo often etched into the dirt while planning his traps. As their work neared completion, the carvings became stories: a sun cupped by two palms, a hunting spear, and a weaving loom crossing paths. Their bodies slowed, heads tilted, hands brushed accidentally, and for once, neither pulled away. But the witch Abena watched with growing panic. Her jealousy twisted further as her spell began unraveling. At her hut, she brewed once more, muttering dark words into the smoky air. "They shall not find peace, not while my heart burns with betrayal." The final trial was at night, beneath the full moon. A shallow pool sparkled near the village edge, filled with water untouched by human hands. Kafilwe stood beside the water's edge, carrying two palm-sized bowls adorned with colorful patterns. "Here," she said, "is the clearest magic. You must drink from the bowls and describe what you see in the water. But speak honestly, for dishonesty will deepen the curse." Olana was the first to drink. Her voice trembled as she gazed into the water. "I see two figures, a man and a woman beneath the market tree. They are laughing." She winced, gripping the bowl tightly. "Why does it hurt to say this?" Kwadwo took his turn, the liquid sliding down his throat, his gaze fixed into the pool. "The moon," he started, "the moon reflecting upon the river, their singing, her voice." He faced Olana suddenly, and for the first time his expression softened. "Was that your voice?" The memories cracked open like seeds sprouting in fertile soil. Strings of moments returned. The first glance, the first smile, the touch of hands grazing during a dance. They froze under the weight of recognition. The jealous wind swept through. Abena stormed toward the pool, her agbada billowing furiously. "No, you cannot," she screeched, her fingers clawing the air. But Kafilwe raised her staff, golden light spilling into the night. "Your jealousy ends here, Abena. You chose to let bitterness eat your heart, and bitterness will be your punishment." The witch staggered backward, her cries muffled by the wind's roar. The spell shattered completely, leaving only silence. Abena fled to the edges of the village, never to return. At the pool, Olana and Kwadwo gazed at each other, tears slipping down their cheeks. Their hands instinctively clasped, now filled not with reluctance but the fullness of understanding. Kafilwe stepped forward, her voice quiet but firm. "This love survived because you fought for it. But remember its fragility, for storms will always come." Uremu celebrated the couple's reconciliation with song and dance, their dazzling Ankara fabrics swirling through the warm night air. And though Olana and Kwadwo were once again the heartbeat of the village, there lingered in their spirits a humility, a new respect for love's preciousness. They never forgot, and neither did Uremu.